Checking connection. We're now live. Oh boy. Let's see if that works. Somebody call in. All right. Let's see how it goes. Well, presume Instagram's live. And looks like we're live on Facebook too. So we'll start by welcoming everybody.
Our first live stream tasting. Hopefully it's entertaining, if not informative.
So we'll presume that a lot of folks watching know us and our fans, and maybe we're tuned into what we're going to be doing here. But I'm Jamie Peterson, for those of you that don't know, and my father, Fred Peterson, Peterson Winery here, of course. We are in the Dry Creek Valley, Sonoma County, outside of Healdsburg here, and we make a wide range of wines. Zinfandel is probably our specialty. We grow a lot of different grapes, and tonight we are going to be diving into a few of our wines. Our winemaking philosophy we call zero manipulation. It is we don't filter, we don't fine, we don't try and make the wines differently to tweak the flavors and make them taste the same. So we kind of celebrate the differences of each of the years. So we thought we would open 3 wines, the same varietal from the same vineyard, and explore the differences that the growing season can make. So that is what we're looking to do, and a little bit more about us. We currently make about 5,000 cases. It's just my father and I mostly. Office manager Jan helps out, and an assistant winemaker. We just sent the marketing department and the makeup department home for our parents here. But anyways, we're small, we're intimate, we're putting this together just for kicks to join with you. Since we can't have you here, we can't go visit you, we're saying hi to our folks in Chicago and Iowa. I was supposed to be out there last month. Folks in Florida. So here we are, quarantine, and our low-tech, high-touch winery. Now we are high-tech and no-touch, but there's my cheesy jokes. So the tasting we're doing, Bradford Mountain Estate is where our estate vineyard is. We grow a lot of different grapes up there. The wine we chose to focus on for our first live tasting is the Zinfandel, which people always ask me, what's your favorite wine? And if I had to pick sort of a desert island wine, I could only have one, would be the Zin from the mountain. It's growing up, helping out. It's kind of the wine I fell in love with first. It ages beautifully. It's got that Zin quality. So that is what we're focusing on. And the wines from the Bradford Mountain in general are pretty special. That's where we live. That's where we do the actual work. So I'll let my dad talk about the vineyard a little bit more. Try and say hi to folks online, see if the technology is working.
Thanks, Jamie. Again, thanks for joining us, our first live stream tasting, and it is a vertical. 2013, 2014, 2015, Bradford Mountain Zin. It's where I live. It's where Jamie grew up. We moved up here early in 1983 from Mount Eden Vineyards down in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And my first chore was to develop the vineyard on Bradford Mountain. It had been planted originally in the 1890s. There was a tiny, a little over an acre Zinfandel vineyard still producing that was planted part of the original planting. I love mountain wines. I love the intensity. I love the focus. I joke that one of the nice things about growing grapes on a mountain is Mother Nature does much of the management. That the poor soil, limited nutrients, water, a little more sunshine, a little less fog, gives you vines that are a little more open, smaller berries, more intense color, flavor, and less disease pressure, frankly. We're surrounded by native vegetation, so we don't, as a rule, insect issues aren't a problem. We have to mildew, powdery mildew is something that everyone treats for, but even that is less on the mountain because of the openness of the vines. The soil is a similar color to the label, a little more reddish perhaps. It's ancient alluvial soil. It was laid down roughly 65 million years ago, although it varies depending on the site. And then when the coastal mountains were formed by the continental and the Pacific plate coming together, or however that phenomenon occurred, the hills, the coastal mountains were raised up. And so the soil's been out there weathering for all these many millions of years. And what happened as a consequence is most of the nutrients were leached out. The iron and aluminum, which gives the soil its color, is left, and very little else. So it's well drained. The vines grow slowly. They root deeply. I don't irrigate most of the vines up there. A couple of patches in the real rocky spots, I have to get a little bit of water, but 90% of the vineyard is what we call dry farm, meaning it survives on the rainfall that soaks into the soil in the wintertime. It's, as Jamie said, we planted a number of varieties on Bradford Mountain. Cab Franc, Syrah. We do a Grenache Syrah, Mourvèdre, Carignan blend. The 3V White, the little block down by my leaky pond, is our mountain white wine. But much like Jamie, if I could only drink one of our wines, well, if I could only drink one Zin, it would certainly be the Bradford Zin. Because of the focus, the intensity. It's a little more blackberry, a little spicier. We do blend a little bit of Petit Syrah typically in Carignan, but the intensity of the Zin from Bradford Mountain is really what shines. And not that the fact that this Zinfandel is age-worthy in and of itself makes it better, but this is a wine even in a lighter year, and of the three, the 13, 14, and 15, I would say the 14 is probably the lightest, but that's sort of parsing. But even in a light vintage with a good cellar, I have no problem telling people to, you can leave it for 10 years and without an issue. Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, Zinfandel isn't one that you think of aging because it's, the fruitiness is usually the dominant character, but in a wine from a special vineyard, the secondary quality, the earthiness, the terroir, the minerality, those can hold up in the wine beyond just the fruit. And then the fact that all these wines, we put a little bit of new oak on them, they can carry that. Get up for a second. So we're streaming both on Facebook and Instagram, which our tech department set up with 2 devices. And I can see the Facebook folks, but Instagram folks, I'm going to go check on that because it's having a bit. But I'll pour a little of the 13 here to start, just so I'm not leaving you thirsty. And
yeah, and
we can talk about 13s. I think
one thing. When people ask what makes a mountain vineyard special, and Bradford Mountain is not that high elevation-wise. It's roughly 1,100 foot elevation, but it has 2 things going for it. One is it's poor soil, as I've already alluded to, and it's above the summer fog. And in California, our summer weather, for those who spent any time here during the summer, harking back to the Mark Twain, the coldest winter I ever spent was the summer in San Francisco. The Central Valley heats up, creates low pressure, sucks in the cool air from the cold Pacific waters, which condenses and forms fog. And on a typical summer morning, I look down on the sea of fog in the valley floor. As the morning progresses, the fog burns off and the valley heats up. So in the morning, it's actually warmer up on Bradford Mountain than in the valley. When the valley gets really hot in a typical summer afternoon, it starts cooling down more quickly up at my place. So though the vines leaf out earlier in the spring because the soil warms up earlier typically, these grapes are the last Zinfandel we harvest because the cool afternoon, early evening causes the grapes to ripen a little more slowly, what we call extended hang time. So you get a little more intensity. Typically, the mountain fruit retains higher acidity, so you can have a big wine that still has that wonderful balance with the with good acidity and the complexity. So 13, I was just looking at sadly, my memory does not improve with age, though the wines do.
Well, you make so many wines and you can only remember. So I was just thinking how I used to remember all the details on all the wines when I first started in 06, and now it's harder to remember all the differences, but what?
That's very true. Yeah, I used to remember when harvest started and every little detail. Now the reality is I remember the really horrible moments or the really wonderful ones. And but 13 produced. It's a big wine. It's on the heels of the 12, which was a large harvest. 13 wasn't quite as large, but still
pretty big. I mean, that was my memory of 13. Every year we have a couple of helpers and interns. In 13, we had Tony and Coralie, the East Coast and French gal, and Chris was helping. And we were scrambling to pack all the grapes in. And, I mean, I think if I remember right, too, like we did make a fair amount this year, 500 cases, and it's a little riper, but it still had good acidity. So I think it was a bigger crop still overall. But it did hang a little longer. It's 14.8 alcohol.
But as you said earlier, it's approaching 7 years in the bottle. So
yeah, not too many Zins. I mean, for me, it's it's still got life. It's still got the tannins are getting resolved. I mean, it's not going to be the longest aging of the Bradford Zins, but it's holding up some body to develop a little more.
Well, certainly it won't go at least 10 years.
Yeah, it'll go 5 more without a doubt.
Yeah, and people often ascribe more tannins to the Bradford Mountain Zin, and I don't want to tell people they're wrong, but in fact, the wine doesn't have quantitatively more tannin than our other Zins, but the tannins it has seem a little more pronounced because of the higher acidity, lower pH. So it has a little more structure, which makes the tannin seem a little more pronounced, I guess.
Yeah, the acidity kind of, acidity and tannin play off each other, and that's really true in this wine because, I mean, we don't make wines that are tannic really compared to so many. We like the elegance and balance, and even in a powerful wine like this, we don't want it to hammer your palate. So that's what we're going for. In a slightly warmer year like 14.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jamie had to remind me that though the 14 is a warmer year, it's lower alcohol than the 13, which we had to give more time on wine to get the acid and the sugar in balance. So it seems riper just because of the softness compared to the 13, even though it's almost 1% lower in alcohol. but it has that pronounced blackberry, almost a white pepper quality that comes through in all the Bradford Zins, to me anyhow, and everyone tastes are a little bit different. But in a way, the 14 seems a little, well, it is softer on my palate than the 13, though the 13 has been in bottle a year longer.
Yeah, the brightness and the, overall probably won't age quite as long as the 13, but yeah, this year we had new helper in the cellar. Kyla and then Chris and Catherine were helping out, and it was a relatively smooth harvest overall. I can't remember anything that stood out as far as massive heat waves or anything that was particularly shocking. So
no, and one thing that we talked about earlier, all the grapes in the Bradford Mountains Inn are from Bradford Mountain, but all the grapes in the Bradford Mountains Inn aren't necessarily the Zinfandel. The 14, and I don't recall the blend on the 13. I guess I have the sheet here, thank God.
Little Petite Syrah can is 88% Zin or so.
Yeah, well, actually 84% Zin, 10% Carignan, and 6% Petite Syrah. And the 14 has a little bit, it has 4% each Grenache, Carignan, and Petite Syrah. So a little bit of that Grenache, that kind of nice berry, a little softness comes through. The 13, 10% Carignan, I think, brings a little more structure and acidity, and of course the Petite Syrah, that kind of black pepper, little spiciness and tannin to the wine. And 14 was the a drought year. I mean, we haven't suffered as much as other areas of California, but it was a little less rain in 14, a little warmer in the middle of the summer, and as a consequence, the grapes actually weren't harvested that much earlier, but it was the weather that year made for the grapes to be a little to ripen with a little softer, a little less structure than the 13, certainly.
Yeah, but really enjoyable now. I mean, we poured them side by side a couple times. We tucked away. We have a little bit left of all these. So those of you that are tasting along and got your sets, enjoy. And then people that haven't had a chance, you go to our website. We've got some specials on shipping and stuff. Just my little plug on them. But the 15 I'll pour next. Which
we just released here was part of the latest Wine Club shipment. So I haven't had as much 15 just because it's been sitting in the bottle for a bit. And this is actually a high percentage of Zin of the three vintages, 96% Zinfandel with 4% Petite Syrah. And it's a bigger wine. It's, as Jamie pointed out earlier today, it's the second year, so the berries are even smaller. It's a big wine. It's over 15% alcohol. But again, the balance with the acidity you get from the mountain.
It's still all natural acidity there. We're not adding, and we didn't need them, And sometimes we'll blend Carignan for acidity into the Zin and spice. But this year, I'm just remembering, some of the Zin, very, very little. We had 300 cases of this, so we were able to. Because these vines too, we replanted a portion of the Zin in 2008, 2009, even 2007. The Primitivo
was 7 and 8, yeah.
Okay, so as they get a little more mature and came online, we're able to make a little more from different flocks in the vineyard. So I think this year it was a pretty good chunk of Primitivo too, was part of why it's,
Yeah, which Primitivo, for those that don't know, is just a clone of Zinfandel that came from the Apulia region of Italy. And though genetically it can't be separated from Zin, in the vineyard, the berries are smaller, the clusters are a little looser, which is good for having less tendency to rot, which Zinfandel, its challenges from a grower standpoint is you get early rains and there's a good chance you're going to get some bunch rot. And summers where you don't get rain, but you get heavy fog, you can still get rot in the clusters because the skins are fairly thin, larger berries, and in a tight cluster where some of the berries split, the botrytis, which is a fungus disease, will get started. And Primitivo, because it's a smaller berry with a little thicker skin, is a lot safer bet, a lot less prone for bunch rot. But as a consequence, it tends to have a little tannin, a little more, tannin, I guess.
The acidity retains a little higher, which is kind of tricky sometimes for the mountain vineyard. I mean, we like acidity, but it's part of why it's a little higher alcohol. But I don't really worry about the number. It's just a number.
Yeah,
It's just a number. It doesn't taste hot to me. I mean, for me, this has kind of the perfect balance of fruit and spice and structure. And
it's definitely a big wine. Yeah, I mean, whereas the 13 is a little more delicate to me, but still has a mountain intensity. The 15 is just really big and juicy and kind of right there.
Yeah, but still fresh. Go back and try. Go through again. I have a slight preference. It's tricky, like choosing a favorite, but which we don't have to do.
No, we don't. But yeah, the favorite's what's in your glass at the time.
Yeah.
But having the three of them together, interesting. I mean, I always said I preferred the 13 to the 14, but this afternoon, having them side by side, kind of like the 14.
Right now?
Yeah, right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's, for me, like, on my sort of mental level of overthinking things, like, I prefer 15 overall. That's my winemaking routine, but drinking wise, like the 14 right now is just kind of
But it's also in the context. I mean, if with I joke that it's not just because the Bradford Zin has a mountain lion on the label, which we do have on Bradford Mountain, that I call this our carnivores Zin. But it's the Zinfandel that for meat lovers, of which I am one, it's the Zin that wants to have a little fat. And I think the 13, because of the higher acidity, a little ossobuco or a nice
tomatoey,
yeah,
sort of like,
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of got old world, the place of the Sangiovese.
But yeah, it has a little more of that nuanced, whereas the 15 is just really, big and juicy and balanced, and the 14 is kind of, sort of, well, it's both in between year, but to my palate, it's also betwixt and between.
Yeah. It's fun, and these wines, I mean, I actually opened 16 a couple weeks ago because I hadn't tried it since bottling for a while, and then last night I opened a 17, which is way too young. So I mean, it's.
And for all our wines, and again, not that the fact that we like wines that are processed, have really good natural acidity. And for the mountain wines, we really like to give them some time in the bottle after to age after bottling, because it allows the wine to develop. I mean, and this is obviously just my opinion, well, maybe shared by others, but so many California wines are released way too early that they're disjointed. They haven't had a chance to kind of resolve and come together. And to me, that's a shame. It's not that they're not good wines, and you certainly can't that you can't enjoy them, but they're not showing the potential with even a year of bottle age will allow them to exhibit.
Yeah, and wines with, naturally made with a little more, they can take some time. Not every year. It's funny, some years are ready to go sooner than others. I mean, 6 months, a year ago, like the 13 and 14, the 13 was still pretty tight, and the 14 was showing, as we've seen this evening, ready to go. Well, let's see comments from folks.
Yeah, again, bear with us as our first. Their questions are, if you're communicating with us, Jane will hopefully be able to.
Keep it up. Yeah, I don't know if it's kind of not as remarkable. I mean, as we said, it's kind of in between. It's like the 15 was the powerhouse, and the 15 has just beautiful layers and elegance and subtlety and complexity. The 14 is kind of in the middle. I mean, but it's drink now. It's just enjoyable. So that's the one. If I were going to a dinner party or a get together, I would probably grab a 14 right now. So it's, every wine has a place, and like ageability, probably the 15 has the most. If I were going to, we took Zin to France on a trip before, because they don't grow it there. They don't know what to make really, but they enjoyed it. And so like the 13 might be the one to France, or folks that love European wines because it has the most. So everyone has a place. So I don't know if saying that it's not as you can't say it's better or worse. It's the place for them, which might sound like a cop out, but it doesn't have to be better. It can be different and enjoyable in their own way. So.
Well, yeah, exactly. And to me, making wines, besides stuff that tastes good, we want to capture place, which in the case of the Bradford Mountain Zin is obviously Bradford Mountain, but also time. That every year has something different to say. Every year, with the sort of benign weather we typically have in California during our growing season, every year is different, and it shows in the wine. And one of the things that I've always believed in, and Jamie has done a better job putting it in practice, is letting the vineyard and the vintage do the talking, if you will. That the style of Peterson wine should be about the vineyard, should be about the vintage, and not about the winemaker's ego, or working backwards from making wine to please the critics. For us, it's about initially pleasing ourselves, and then hopefully pleasing enough folks who will become our loyal customers, which has happened. So for that, we're grateful.
Apologies to our Instagram folks. Hopefully it's back. Thanks, Jeremy, for trying to let me know with the phone call. I had a sense, but work in progress for the virtual Facebook. We'll be having the video live on there, I believe is how it works. So it'll be on their story, so you can taste along through. But if anybody has any more, questions or thoughts or message, or don't call because we're the only ones here. I don't know. Talk phone. But thanks for joining us. And in summation, it's fun to be able to do this and We might look at doing another virtual one, dial in some links, and we got more of our box wines, kind of not the opposite end of the spectrum, but you know, the top of the line, Bradford Zin, favorite wine, and then the box wines we do. You know, some of our easy drinking ones that we're going to be releasing more of just in time for summer. So thinking in a couple weeks we get some out, and all right, I think.
Yeah, and hopefully work out our technical things. Thank you. And again, it's be well, enjoy wine in moderation, and we look forward to the day we can see you all again in person here and around the country. So,
all right, I got one about Instagram, Jeremy, about a target for blending. Because you know, a lot of blends, and that's our only tweaking of the wine blending. So, you know, overwhelm fruitiness. You know, we want it like we want structure to age, and seeing as the base year is a little different. Some years it needs a little more care. So the target is like Zinfandel, taste the terroir.
it tastes good.
Tastes good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Zinfandel, you know, people ask us, it used to be blends considered inferior, even though originally all Zin was field blends. So predominantly the Italian immigrants and other ethnic folks didn't care what it was called. They wanted to make wines that tasted good. And generally, Zinfandel, because it's soft and fruity, having a little more structure that typically the Carignan, in the day, Alicante, a little bit of whites brought to the wine, made a more interesting wine. And thankfully now people are appreciating the blendability or blends that are more interesting wines. But now I see I've lost my train of thought and I haven't had that much drink. So to Jamie's point, we don't want to lose what makes Bradford Mountain Zin, but the blending is to fill in the, you know, just to make it a little more complex, juicy, make a wine that a complete wine that highlights the fruitiness of Zin by and it more layers and more complexity. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't want to lose the zinniness or the Bradford vineyard sense, but we also make the wine that tastes the best.
that is again, you just want to drink them. All right, I think we'll say bye now.
Good.
And,
We'll see you. Stay well. And,
you can
thank
see.
you.